Why do most people stay broke even when they work hard for decades? It's not because they're lazy or stupid. Research on poverty, behavioral economics, and financial literacy surveys shows that staying poor is a mix of systemic traps, psychology, and everyday habits that quietly lock people into low wealth cycles. Today, we're going to unpack the real reasons people stay broke, backed by data, and then show how to break free step by step. The myth of pure motivation. A lot of people assume that rich people are just smarter, more disciplined, or more driven than poor people. But long-term studies tracking thousands of poor households in places like rural Bangladesh show that talent and motivation don't explain persistent poverty. In one major experiment, researchers gave poor households a one-time asset transfer like livestock or a small business starter kit and followed them for over a decade. If the transfer pushed families above a minimum asset threshold, they exited poverty and stayed out. If the transfer was too small, they slid right back into the same low-income trap. That's the key idea. It's not their character holding them down. It's a lack of initial capital and opportunity. Poverty traps, earning enough but never getting ahead. Poverty traps are situations where people earn just enough to survive, but not enough to build assets that would help them move up. Many poor workers are stuck in low-wage, irregular jobs, gig work, day labor, or small informal businesses that pay little and are unstable. They have to spend almost everything just to cover food, rent, and immediate bills. That leaves no surplus to save, invest in skills, or buy productive tools like a sewing machine, van, or even a good laptop. MIT-led research in Bangladesh found that these irregular, low-paying activities are not what people are naturally suited for. They're what people are forced into because they lack the seed capital to start more stable, higher-income work. So yes, hard work matters, but if your job barely pays next week's rent, you're on a treadmill. You can't save, so you can't escape. Welfare and benefit cliffs that punish ambition. In some countries, the welfare system unintentionally creates poverty-like disincentives to earn more. Studies of U.S. welfare programs show that when low-income workers increase their earnings, they can suddenly lose healthcare subsidies, housing assistance, or food benefits. In some scenarios, working harder and moving from minimum wage to a middle-class level wage can actually decrease net income once benefits are cut and taxes rise. Asset limit rules also force people to spend down savings to stay eligible for help, which undermines long-term financial security. This is what economists call a poverty trap. The system punishes you for trying to climb the ladder. So many people stay in low-income roles even when they could earn more. Financial literacy gaps and money habits. Data show that financial literacy gaps are tightly linked to staying broke. The US-based PFINE Index, which tests adults on earnings, savings, risk, and basic financial decisions, has found that around half of American adults lack basic financial literacy skills, and this has barely improved over 8 years. People with low financial literacy are more likely to spend more than they earn, skip emergency funds, and have no retirement plan. They're also more likely to rack up late payment fees, use payday loan-style lenders, and push credit cards beyond their limits. Put simply, if you don't know how interest, compound growth, and budgets really work, it's easy to bleed money without even realizing it. The psychology of scarcity and tunneling. Behavioral economics research shows that poverty isn't just a lack of money, it's a mental state of scarcity. When people constantly worry about paying rent or buying groceries, their brain starts to tunnel on the most urgent problem. Scarcity mindset studies find that people under constant financial pressure focus on short-term fixes instead of long-term strategy, are more likely to borrow at high interest or take high-fee loans to solve immediate crises. This creates a feedback loop. Short-term borrowing relieves today's stress but deepens tomorrow's debt, which makes the scarcity mindset even worse. Emotional spending and the money comfort loop. One of the most hidden reasons people stay broke is that they use money to soothe emotions instead of securing their future. Psychology and behavioral economics work shows that every purchase can trigger a dopamine hit, the brain's reward signal. A bad day at work, Rhine line shopping. A fight at home, a big dinner out. Money stress, more spending to temporarily feel better. Many people keep this pattern even when their income rises. They don't build wealth, they just scale up their emotional spending. Retail therapy feels like self-care, but it's really emotional regulation through financial destruction. The debt-saving mismatch and false urgency. Another big trap is what behavioral economists call the debt-saving mismatch. People feel enormous pressure to pay debts on time, but treat saving as optional. For example, someone might happily commit to Rampal 8000 or $400 in monthly EMIs while avoiding a boring Rampal 2000 or $100 savings plan. Debt payments feel urgent and involuntary. Saving feels voluntary and invisible until a crisis hits. Yet in reality, debt is paying for your past. Saving is paying for your future. If you prioritize someone else's schedule, banks, lenders, credit card companies over your own, you'll always fund other people's wealth instead of your own. Social environment and money scripts. You don't grow up in a vacuum. Your family and friends shape your money scripts, the unconscious beliefs you carry about money. Common inherited scripts include, money is tight and always will be. Rich people are greedy. Talking about money is rude. These beliefs quietly push people toward avoiding budgeting or investing conversations, staying in low-paying roles that feel safe or normal. And because your social circle normalizes certain spending habits, it can become deeply uncomfortable to deviate from them. If everyone you know lives paycheck to paycheck, saving 20% or investing sounds extreme, not responsible. If your tribe judges modest cars or smaller homes while praising luxury brands, you're under social pressure to spend more than you should. Lack of assets and inequality trends. U.S. data on wealth distribution show who's actually getting richer and who isn't. From 1989 to 2022, total family wealth in the U.S. nearly quadrupled, but that growth was extremely uneven. The top percentiles captured most of the gains. Families in the bottom 25% of the wealth distribution had average net worth under $75,000 in 2022, and many had negative wealth, more debt than assets. What this means for staying broke is brutally simple. If you don't own appreciating assets like a home, stocks, or a business, you're left outside the main engine of wealth growth. And if you're compelled to eat your savings to keep benefits or stuck in jobs that don't let you build assets, the system itself resists your upward movement. Habits that guarantee you stay broke. Across psychology, finance blogs, and behavioral economics research, several recurring behaviors predict persistent financial struggle. Common patterns include no clear financial goals, people who never define what enough looks like or what financial freedom means, drift from crisis to crisis, avoiding accountability. Blaming the economy, the government, or family instead of owning spending decisions makes change nearly impossible. Living paycheck to paycheck while ignoring big picture decisions. Staying busy with small tasks instead of planning income growth, investing, or debt reduction keeps people in survival mode. Using credit to rent peace of mind. Buying now with money you don't have disconnects the pain of payment from the pleasure of purchase, creating a recurring emotional spending loop. These habits aren't about intelligence. They're about default patterns that compound quietly over years. How to break the cycle. So if systemic traps, psychology, and habits are what keep people broke, how do you escape? Research on poverty alleviation programs suggests that one-off asset transfers plus support, such as training, savings access, and simple guidance can permanently lift people out of poverty if they cross a minimum asset threshold. For individuals, that translates into a few practical shifts. Build a tiny surplus. Even a 1-5% savings habit, automated before you spend, starts to build momentum. Kill the biggest leaks. Use short-term no-spending experiments or a cash-only week to see how different spending feels when money leaves instantly. Separate emotions from spending. Ask yourself, am I buying this because I need it or because I'm stressed, bored, or sad? Upgrade your financial literacy. Spend 10 minutes a day learning about interest, compound interest, and simple investing concepts. Reframe your money script. If your old script is money is tight, consciously rewrite it to I'm building long-term security, not just surviving today. Final takeaway. Most people stay broke not because they're unintelligent or morally flawed, but because they're caught in a web of poverty traps, low financial literacy environments, and psychological habits that prioritize short-term comfort over long-term wealth. The good news is, you don't need genius to change this. You need awareness plus a few consistent habits. Once you understand the real reasons people stay broke and you start designing your own rules around saving, spending, and investing, you shift from being a victim of the system to being the architect of your own financial future.